You know, Miss Banks, since you had that baby, there's something different about you.
These videos are not for children. If you are a children, then piss off.
The Infuso, born and raised. On a playground is where I spent most of my days. Chilling out, relaxing, thinking I was cool. Backyard wrestling behind some school. Okay, now that we got that obligatory open out of the way, as you may have guessed, if you didn't know already, I'm the Infuso, and today I'm here to talk about one of my all-time favorite shows growing up, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Will Smith's finest role to date. And look, I don't care what he's done in his career, okay? I don't care. He can paint himself blue and act like Robin Williams. He can lazily half-ass his way through movies with Margot Robbie. He can be in as many biopics as his heart desires, but he will always be the Fresh Prince to me. I don't care how many movies you made, okay? You are the Fresh Prince. Although I'll tell you what, I did like the Bad Boys movies. Those are up there too, but Fresh Prince is above that. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air has a basic setup. Will Smith gets into one little fight and his mom gets scared, sends him packing and moving to Bel-Air, where he moves in with his wealthy Uncle Phil, one of the most iconic father figures ever put to television. A bold yet humble and honorable man who is just as frightening as he is understanding. Then you have Phil's son and Will's cousin, Carlton, a preppy, self-centered cartoon of a man who respects those who have come before him, practically idolizing his own father, who he lovingly refers to as Big Man. Oh yeah, and plus he used to do stuff like this. And that was a personal highlight for me as a child. Then there's Carlton's older sister, Hillary, who is an airheaded, ditzy, naive brat who is even more self-centered than him, but still kind-hearted and loving. You have the youngest of the family, Ashley, who is just now coming into her own, and more often than not looks to Will as inspiration. She's maybe the most intelligent of the household, despite her also being the most immature, but that's due to her age, give her time. And then we have the topic of this video, Aunt Viv. Vivian Banks. Now, before I get any further, I want to say that everyone from my own subscribers, to Facebook friends, to other YouTubers have warned me about the original Aunt Viv actress, Janet Hubert. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, I have a habit of doing so. So let me start off by saying, Janet, if you happen to see this, please don't sue me. I don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes. There's a lot of he said, she said, which I will be bringing up. I don't know what's true, I don't know what's false, because this may surprise you, but I wasn't there. All I can do is regurgitate the information I've gotten on the internet, via several sources on said internet. But this video isn't necessarily about that. It's actually about the role of Aunt Viv on The Fresh Prince as a whole, and the two women who portrayed her in its 6-year run, and just how differently they performed as the character. Because there is a very noticeable difference, we'll get there, but I'm just saying, it's noticeable.
Battle is second Aunt Viv versus first Aunt Viv.
My money, Philip Banks. Ever since I took your job.
And on all them episodes, I never seen you do this.
You see, Janet Hubert was originally cast as the character, a role she's probably most famous for. And like you and everybody else, I liked her plenty on Friends, that was wonderful, but I'm just saying, this is probably what she's best known for. The role seemed tailor-made for her, as she very realistically came across as self-assured, confident, and articulate in her delivery of her lines. For the first 3 seasons of the show, she was an essential part of the series, at times being the voice of reason, and at others balancing between being a very career-driven, financially focused character and a full-time mother. But during season 3, following a falling out with series star Will Smith, Janet was let go from the show, and Daphne Maxwell Reid was brought in as a replacement. Now, Will claims that Janet was egotistical behind the scenes, and wanted the spotlight to solely be on her and her alone. A statement that co-star Alfonso Ribeira, Carlton Banks himself, seems to mirror as well.
Had an absolute amazing time working with Will, with Tatiana and James. First mom, not so much. Legally, I'm not allowed to talk about it. But hey. She went nuts. It was crazy. She was funny. She was great. She was a very talented actress. Cuckoo. There were days when we were on the set and she would literally go off on people, and she made it very difficult for us to work. And unfortunately, she was then fired. They brought in Daphne Maxwell-Reid, who we absolutely love, and we moved on. It was like when the new mom came on, Will just looked at the camera and said, kept on rolling.
Janet, on the other hand, claims that she was completely professional on set, while Will and Carlton were actually the ones who acted up.
Janet Hubert was never difficult on that set. Janet Hubert was so professional, it wasn't even funny. Those things never happened. She never left the set. I never left the set. We got along great. I think Will simply needed to win. I think he was young, and he was inexperienced, and I think he simply had to win.
Whatever the case may be, she was shown the door, and the search for a replacement began, and ended, apparently, very quickly. What makes this especially confusing is that Janet Hubert got pregnant prior to her dismissal from the show, and that pregnancy was used on the show. The youngest Banks, Nikki, was added to the mix to accommodate and canonicalize Janet's real-life pregnancy, only for producers to ultimately fire her before that baby arrived, leaving the show to now have to not only cast a miniature actor, but also a replacement as well. Again, before I get deeper into this, I asked the lovely people of my Facebook and Twitter just who they think the real Aunt Viv is. Most people said Janet Hubert, or as they lovingly referred to her as, the OG Aunt Viv. But a decent amount did say that Daphne Maxwell-Reid was their favorite Aunt Viv, and a small amount admitted to liking both of them. As for me, personally, I think they both have their place. Truthfully speaking here, both actresses gave really great performances. They were both believable, loving, caring individuals who sought out the best for their family. However, they're so different, I don't think it's even fair comparing the two. These performances are just so night and day different that they might as well have been two different characters. Actually, as a matter of fact, no joke here, when I was a kid, I usually caught Fresh Prince marathons on Nick at Night. I didn't get the luxury of watching the show in order until I bought it years later on DVD. So as a kid, I was actually, again, no joke here, I was seriously under the impression that the original Aunt Viv and Phil divorced, and he remarried to this other woman who just so happened to also be named Vivian. I mean, granted, yeah, that seems a bit far-fetched, but it makes a hell of a lot more sense than this. This is quite possibly the most noticeable recasting in the history of television, or movie, just in the history of history. The two actresses don't even remotely look the same. One is a taller, dark-skinned woman, and the other is a shorter, light-skinned one. How am I supposed to believe that this is the same How does that happen? What, did she shrink and bleach her skin in the course of 1 year? Now, looks aren't everything. As I've been told by various ex-girlfriends and just people in my life trying to reassure me, because, yeesh. But this isn't about me. Looks aren't everything in movies and TV. You can properly recast a character without the two actors playing them having a strong resemblance. I mean, look at the Iron Man movies. Terrence Howard and Don Cheadle, they share next to none of the same qualities. Yet people love Don Cheadle in that role.
Next time, baby.
Later.
Hey, buddy. Didn't expect to see you here.
Look, it's me. I'm here to deal with it. Let's move on.
So it can be done. The whole looks part isn't my major gripe here. This is. The character wasn't written, nor was it portrayed, even remotely similar to how Janet Hubert played the role. When Janet played Vivian, she was this raw, real, strong motherly type. She was a no-nonsense, take-no-bullshit woman who was so much more than just a mom or an aunt. Oh, I'm sorry, an aunt.
Would you please sit down? We're busy now.
Oh, honey, we're about to get very busy.
She was her own person. She had her own character. She had her own life filled with her own accomplishments outside of her family. This woman had a PhD. She attended law school and was a teacher at the Belair Academy at which Will attended. Plus, she had that whole dance number that one time. You remember that? How could you forget? She was a character stories could be based around. There were plenty of Aunt Viv-led stories and episodes in the first 3 seasons of the show. Whereas when Daphne Maxwell-Reid played the role, she was just the loving housewife and mother to her children. She was a wonderful woman, but for the most part, she was just your typical TV mom. This Aunt Viv was a drastically toned down, less ambitious woman without the fiery demeanor her predecessor had. As a matter of fact, she more often than not kinda seemed like a rug, as she was walked on by everybody. Whereas the original Aunt Viv always stood her ground. It's almost like this was Aunt Viv, but in name only. Stories couldn't be built around this character. Even though she was promoted as being a lead, she was really just a supporting character to stories. Hell, sometimes she just kind of felt like she was part of the background. I want to make it clear, I'm not saying one is better than the other because, again, to compare these two wildly different performances, honestly, it doesn't even make sense to do. They were two extremely different takes on the same character. And honestly, I have a really hard time seeing this as being the same person. And in the realm of fiction, I can accept a lot. There's an extended suspension of disbeliefs when it comes to fiction. But for this, I don't know. This just straight up does not compute. But as I said before, I like Aunt Viv 1, I like Aunt Viv 2. They both have their own place. But those two places are worlds apart. Daphne was a really good actress, and she had a real natural chemistry with the rest of the cast. She fit in perfectly. So much so that if you didn't watch the show before, you'd probably believe that she was always there. There was definitely a working dynamic here, but it just wasn't the same energy that Janet had in that role. It wasn't the same dynamic she had with the cast. And come to think of it, it wasn't even the same show. You see, The Fresh Prince was made in such a way that each and every character and actor was integral to the series. Think of the show as a machine. If you take one cog out, it won't function the same way it once did. Even if it works still, there will still more than likely be a noticeable difference. But it's like when they replaced that cog, all of a sudden this became a whole different machine. I don't know if that analogy even works at all, come to think of it, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to say, because I'm starting to lose it myself. Aunt Viv no longer got her own stories. With the new actress, she was pushed to the background, along with Uncle Phil to some degree as well. In the forefront were the children, and nephew of the family. If you rewatch the show in its entirety, there's no question that the last 3 seasons of the show have much more Hillary and Ashley-led stories than the first 3. Janet's exit from the series, for whatever the reason was, whoever was at fault, whatever happened, her exit from the show completely changed it. And that's really all there is to it. So ended the tale of 2 Aunt Vivs. I will say that I think it's a bit sad that with all the cast reunions we've seen, that Janet is never properly included, as she is a big part of what made that show initially successful. She had some really great moments in the show, and she definitely deserves some recognition for it. But it seems like there's still some bad blood over the whole ordeal. Still to this day. And that's unfortunate. Let me just tell you right now, this video was a struggle to make. For no other reason than there aren't too many clips available online of Daphne's performance as Aunt Viv. You may have noticed that I eventually resorted to just showing cast pictures because that's all I had. Whereas with Janet Hubert, there's an abundance of clips of her time as the character. You can find plenty of scenes, some duplicates of each other in different qualities online. You can even find best of compilations. Whereas Daphne, there's next to nothing. There's her first scene as the character where Jazz makes that comment, and then almost nothing after that. Like literally next to nothing after that. So that probably tells you who is more fondly remembered as the character. And I think the reasoning for this is that the character's most iconic moments, their most memorable scenes, were all performed with the original actress. I mean, think about it, and really think about this. Could you really see the second Aunt Viv doing any of this?
And what is that supposed to mean?
Oh, too many big words.
No, Miss Thing, but I got a couple of small words for you. You are not going to MacArthur Park tonight. In fact, none of you are going to MacArthur Park tonight.
Wait a minute.
Boy, do not test me.
Yes, ma'am. Did you ask your wife to calm down?
Calm yourself, Barney Fife.
Yeah, not likely. So contributing degenerates, let me know in the comment section below who was the better Aunt Viv and why.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Alex Jones, and we are breaking the conditioning. Now look, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm kind of retarded, which is why I liked and subscribed to the Social Injustice Warriors channel. I even clicked that little bell to stay notified. You have to look into it, people. But then I began to uncover what I believe to be a secret, nefarious plot orchestrated by Zionist reptilians. Now give me a second. Digging deep, I discovered that he wants you to quote-unquote follow him on Twitter. Now think about that for a minute. What kind of person, what sort of individual wants you to follow them? You know who else wanted people to follow them? The world's biggest Beach Boy fan, Charles Manson. Those who want to show their support donate to the guy's Patreon for exclusive content. Now, why is it so exclusive? What's this guy hiding from the public? What do those Patreons see that the people of YouTube don't? Then I noticed he also has a PayPal, and just for the low price of $22 plus shipping, you can get yourself a SIJW t-shirt, Social Injustice Warrior. So let's put this all together. He wants people to follow him, he calls you VTards, he wants you all to donate your money to him, and he wants all of you to wear the same clothing. So that just leads to ask, what kind of a hive-like cult is this man operating? The Infuso, the Social Injustice Warrior.